Hey guys. So before I hop into my talk, a few programming notes. We did say best practices on the website. We're peeling that back. We're going to say good practices. We don't want to make any promises. But also, really, before I get started, just a thank you to the whole Spree team. This has been an amazing Spree Conf. It's my third one. Specifically, I think, yes. Also, Shannon and Melissa, who put up with a lot of my sort of logistical problems pre-conference, so thanks a lot. So, yeah, we pitched this to Spree, a talk on good or best practices for mobile commerce. At Dynamo, we love mobile commerce. We love designing responsive sites, and we're seeing massive results, great traffic. And what we've tried to do is we've put together a list, a checklist, 15 I gotta stop saying that, 15 good practices that we're excited to share, that we think you guys can put into practice on your site and get some good results. A little bit about me. I'm Bryan. You can follow me on Twitter at BryanMTL. Like Sean, I do tweet about Spree from time to time, but like any good Montrealer, you will find hockey-related tweets on my feed as well. I'm actually talking at SpreeConf this year. I was on the website last year, but I didn't speak, so this is a big accomplishment. As I mentioned before, this is my third SpreeConf. In my opinion, this is the best one. It's awesome to be back in New York. What a difference this room is compared to the first room we were in. It's cooler, not just in terms of its layout, but also its temperature. And it's really amazing for me. I've been working with Spree since 2009. So to be able to connect with the community like this is always an amazing experience. So to be able to put a face to a GitHub handle is really awesome. So as Josh said, I'm one of Dynamo's founders and a technical lead. So I do a lot of Spree work. Probably 70% of my workload is working with Spree. A little bit about Dynamo. So Dynamo is a digital product studio in Montreal. We were founded in 2000, which makes us pretty old. You can find us online at godynamo.com. You can follow us on Twitter at DynamoMTL. There will probably be some hockey-related tweets on that feed as well. Okay. We do a ton of Spree work, but we do an awful lot of digital work in general, web applications, responsive sites, I said before, native applications, and most importantly, for our talk today, Spree. We've been working with Spree since 2009. I met Sean at the second RailsConf, maybe the third RailsConf. Second? And we were looking to build an e-commerce store for a site that was selling T-shirts for indie rock bands. We were really excited about this. And Sean told me about this project. Spree convinced us to use it, ever the salesman. Fast forward 5 years, and it was an amazing decision. We couldn't be happier. I'm repeating myself, third SpreeConf, 3 out of 4 ain't bad, 750 batting average. And we're looking forward to coming back for the next one, or going across the pond. Okay, e-commerce. A little bit, I'm going to rewind. Dynamo, I mentioned we were founded in 2000. We actually got started in 1999. So my business partner and I, a couple of university students, had an opportunity to build an online store. And we were business and IT majors, and we knew a little bit about design. We knew a little bit about technology. We figured, how hard can this be? So like Andy Dunn said in his keynote, we found this piece of software, this package that we purchased for a few $100, and we set off in between classes to build a powerful e-commerce site. We launched it. It was a spectacular failure. We learned an awful lot, which was sort of fun. It also it cooled us off to e-commerce. So we put that part of our business aside for a little while, but we came back to it several years later, and and now we're working with Spree. And it's not a piece of software that we paid a couple $100 for. It's not painful to use, and we really, really like it. When I was putting this together, I thought back to what it was like in the early days of Spree, like the 0.0.0 days. And when we were working on sites, we were really focused on feature development. What was the next feature we needed to add to the site? Our customers were focused on features. Spree was focused on features. And it's come a long way. I think that the platform has matured. We've matured as designers and developers, and we're less focused on feature development. We saw the roadmap. I mean, Ryan mentioned what some of the future plans for Spree were from a feature standpoint, and I think that's great. But by and large, the platform has what we need. For us, the next killer feature is engagement and conversion. And we really, at Dynamo, we set out in 2014, we kicked off our year by saying, we want to focus on this. This is our next feature. So we pitched this idea to some of our customers. We said, we'd love to start running some tests on your site. We want to bend it, break it, try some things, see what works best, specifically for mobile commerce, and then apply those learnings across the board. And they were totally on board for that, which is awesome. I'm going to flip through some of these sites really quickly. These are our customer sites. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them, so let's go through them. The first site that we wanted to test was Blue Bottle Coffee. So Blue Bottle is a Spree site we launched a year ago. If you were looking to increase your team's productivity, I recommend you get a coffee client. It's amazing. We're way more productive now. The next site that we used as a test bed was Quarterly. So Quarterly also launched around the same time as Blue Bottle, subscription-based, using the latest version of Spree, heavily dependent on the hub. It's been a really awesome product. If you've ever wondered how to get Bill Nye to send you something on a regular basis, head to Quarterly. Next up is a familiar face from SpreeConf last year, Hue and Cry. Our talk last year was all about the rebrand and the rebirth of this site. Now we're really focused on conversion. Phil is actually here in the audience. He's not only on this slide. If you want to talk to him about fit or conversion, find him. Next up, SmartThings, another site that we launched a bunch of sites around the same time. So this was our first completely API-driven Spree store. It has an Angular front end. SmartThings is in the Internet of Things space. If you want to have a connected home, head to their site. It's really fun. Word of warning, it is very addictive. Once you start to connect your home, that's like there's always another device that you want to add to your network. My favorite thing about my SmartThings home, I now have a smart home, is I know when my dogs get home from their walk. So like here's your gratuitous animal picture. And last up is Corey Vines. So Corey Vines is a brand we created, a site we launched, and we're doing some testing there as well. Forbes has dubbed Corey Vines the Warby Parker of activewear, so they're getting a lot of mileage from that. All right, so end of the preamble. What is this talk actually all about? As I mentioned, we're going to try to give you a checklist, a set of 15 practices that you can put in place today for your responsive sites to get your customers more engaged and help to drive conversion. So I'm going to say website an awful lot. I'm specifically talking about responsive sites or mobile sites. I'm not going to spend much time talking about the differences between tablet and phone. We're just going to consider those a mobile visit for the purpose of this talk. We have some generic examples, but really we've extracted these patterns from real tests that are deployed in production right now. As I mentioned before, we like the term good. In our experience, best is pretty subjective. Okay, why are we doing this? We're doing this because phone and tablet visits are exploding. We are just seeing far more traffic. And obviously, and people are predicting this, this isn't earth-shattering, but we're going to see mobile visits eclipse desktop visits soon enough. So we get so much out of the box by using these responsive frameworks. Our sites look pretty good when we launch them on a tablet or on an iPhone. People can check out. Generally, we're happy. But that's not enough. We need to start thinking about this channel in a more specialized way. Most of our touch visits are coming from phones, but we found that tablet visits are actually converting better. So we got two really good opportunities there. Drive more traffic on tablets because they're converting better, and optimize our experience for phones because we're already getting great traffic there so that we make it easier for them to engage and to convert. How did we do all of this? A/B testing. We used a bunch of great tools. Our favorite of late has been Optimizely. If you guys haven't used it before, you should definitely check it out. It makes doing this stuff really easy. It's a great client-facing tool as well. They see how all of the tests are running. Things that were potentially contentious, intuition, things that we thought were obvious, the test results are really, really interesting. Before and after analysis using straight-up analytics and also heat maps. And our tool of choice for heat maps has been Crazy Egg. It's a nice solution. Okay, let's get into the checklist. 15 things that you can do better. Why 15? We had about 30 or 40 tests. These 15, and we started the tests about 7 weeks ago. We feel like we've got pretty significant results. These 15 were the sort of clear winners. And some of them seem really obvious, but we don't do them all the time. So use this as a checklist, run it against your mobile sites and say, am I doing all of these things? Number 1, this is great. Keep your home pages concise. And if you do client work or if you argue with your product teams, we always want to cram as much information as we can into the homepage. And if you're, by default, not doing any optimization for your mobile sites, and you're just resizing your existing homepage content, it's probably full of a bunch of shit that you don't need to serve to your mobile users. What works best? Start with a picture, a simple call to action. If you need to show more, introduce a scroll. A scroll is going to be much better off here than having competing content. When we did this, we saw conversion go up by 30% with a more focused experience. Those are great numbers. This is a great statistic to have if you're having that argument that we need 2 calls to action. Well, you don't need 2 calls to action because it's going to affect how well the one you're really the most concerned about is actually converting. Okay, number 2, calls to action actually work. These are really important. The language we use on these calls to action is probably the most important thing. Use verbs. Prefer shop products over just products. Let's be explicit as we can for our customers. This seems like such an obvious detail. It was really amazing to us when we went through our sites and we took an inventory of our different calls to action, and we were failing this test all over the place. So this was a quick and easy win. The results? 25% more taps on calls to action with a verb when compared to a call to action that was more generic. Number 3 builds on the results of number 2. We found that pairing a call to action with a price yields really wonderful results. We also studied the best place to put the price, and the result that won out was immediately on the button, to the right of the CTA. Pretty amazing results here. 70% increase on starting the checkout process from a CTA that combined an action and a price. This shouldn't be a difficult change to make for really meaningful results. Number 4, turn down the noise. There's going to be a recurring theme here, which is like strip stuff out, which we love to do as designers. Here's an example of a change that we made to a product page. And once again, if you're just using your out-of-the-box responsive framework, the image on the left is probably going to be what your product page looks like right now, which is okay, that works, but it doesn't convert as well. Having just an image, product name, price, and the call to action right there is going to convert an awful lot better. Here comes a huge number, 500% increase. Technically, we rounded up, it was 497% when we checked this morning, by turning down the noise. I mean, this is a huge win. So if your product team or your customer is concerned with getting that information on the page because they think it's important for conversion, the data tells us otherwise. And we saw this not just on one site, we saw this on every site we tested on. Number 5, again, less is more. Less copy is more as well. So here's an example of a change to a page. Yes, applies everywhere. So the previous slide, that's a product show page, right? So here we're looking at more of a product index page. We got rid of the cruft. Let's just have the product title, image, button. This approach led to I skipped the slide. It was 100%. We saw a 100% increase. That was pretty meaningful. Number 6, let's talk about not letting them escape. The no escape checkout. This works particularly well for us on mobile. Typically, the checkout process is going to be kicked off. You're going to have the entire frame of the site around. There's going to be an awful lot of distraction. I think we know as a generation we're easily distracted by things that are going on around us. So make the checkout process focused. If they're into that funnel, don't let them out. I skipped another slide. The results of doing this no escape checkout, the focused checkout, we saw a 15% increase in the amount of people that actually made it all the way through the checkout. So do it. Oh, I skipped it because I wanted to get to my first joke, which is I like big buttons, and so do our mobile users. So our customers are always asking us to make the logo bigger. This is a hill that we are constantly prepared to die on, but really what we should be doing is making our buttons bigger. No one likes to pinch and zoom to be able to get to a button, to click, to go visit a product page, or to check out. This is vital for mobile. We make our users much happier. They're much more willing to engage if we make the buttons easy to tap. For phones, this means buttons that run the complete width of the screen. Let's talk about conversion. We saw 40% more taps with big buttons. Hard to say big buttons with a straight face. So we're putting these buttons on the page for a reason, right? If we're only going to have one, we want to encourage our users to click, so let's make that sucker big. When that big button was a button leading to start the checkout process, that number dropped a little bit. It came down from 40 to 30. Still a big win. Okay, let's talk about layout a little bit. This one is specific to phone. Our recommendation here is to use a single column layout versus 2 or 3. This might be the default that you get out of the box with your responsive framework, but it's still worth noting. A lot of times that there'll be a pressure to show as much product as you can, quote unquote, above the fold. It doesn't work as well. Use one column. Once again, the results don't lie. 20% more conversions in a one column layout. This should be a simple fix. Oh yes, number 9. Put a catfish on it, right? You guys are all using catfishes? No? So a catfish is a term that we have coined at Dynamo that I can't die soon enough, in my opinion. But a catfish is a bottom-dwelling fish. So we're using it to replace the sticky button. It's a much catchier phrase. So let's look at an implementation of a sticky button. So a sticky button is that button that has a fixed position at the bottom of the screen. These have been amazing for us. Catfish is annoying to say, but it works really, really well. So well that we're seeing 42% more add to cart on a page with a catfish or sticky button. If you're not into the catfish, that's totally cool. You can still get a 10% increase in people adding things to their cart if the add to cart button doesn't require a scroll, so if it's visible right away. The catfishes are cool. And they help clean up the ocean. Okay, number 10, cut down your menu. Let's look at an example here. If you have a big menu on your desktop site, we like to just our default answer here is let's just stuff it away into a responsive menu and we'll let our users figure it out. We're making it harder for them to focus on what we want them to click on. So just get rid of those options. Think about content for your mobile users. Results when we tried this, fewer nav options drove 58% more taps. That's huge. Okay, number 11, bring them back. Sometimes we need to direct our customers out of the purchase flow. We need to give them some support information. In the example of Blue Bottle, I can be on a product page and we present our users with brew guides. How should you use these beans to make the best possible Chemex? This is an important page for them to drive their purchase decision. And what we found is by introducing a simple back to shop button at the end of the brew guide, once they figured out that, yeah, okay, I'm gonna tackle this Chemex, it's not so hard. Introducing this button brought them right back to where they were before. Don't force them to hit the back button. and don't leave them lost if they go navigating somewhere else. Simple fix, it avoids, the redirect back to the funnel avoids having a high bounce rate. Okay, number 12, we're keeping things short. This is not necessarily so content focused, it's a little bit more about the scroll. And we saw some really interesting stats here. If you have a product page that spans more than 2 screens, only 15% of mobile users, 15% of mobile users are going to see the entire thing. So whatever's on your second page is not going to be seen. 75% of our mobile users skip what they can't immediately see with a small scroll. So sometimes we will belabor what appears below the fold. We want to curate this content. We want it to look great. But so many people aren't seeing it. So let's just focus with what they see when things immediately load. Okay, I promise this is the last joke. Can I tap it? Yes, you can. So this is what we saw by studying the heat maps. We often design buttons and we place them really close to images, or we put them on top of images. And those buttons are by default clickable, but the heat maps are showing us that our users are clicking all over the image. So if they're already trying to click on it, make the thing clickable, make it tappable. Mobile visitors expect images to be tappable, so let them do it. All right, we're almost there. This is just a sort of a simple convention to follow. Again, it seems obvious, but we scanned our sites and we're breaking this rule all over the place. Don't link out unless you absolutely have to. Outbound links are a point of no return. Okay, number 15. This one sort of, this surprised us. This one sort of fell out, but the results were significant enough and they kept coming back when we repeated this across various sites that it's an interesting study for us to share with you here. Show a cart, introduce an icon, don't say it. Let's replace the cart with an actual cart icon, and customers are 20% more likely to tap when they see an icon versus the words. And if that cart is your gateway to start the checkout process, 20% is a really big number. All right. In summary, this is a checklist. These are good practices, not best practices. They, on the surface, seem simple enough to implement, but they can drive really compelling results. We're really focused on responsive at Dynamo. We don't necessarily do mobile specific. Those lines are getting blurred. I don't think that any of these practices are uniquely responsive versus mobile. In other words, they can be applied in both places. Obviously, we didn't make much of a distinction between phone and tablet. Some of those were specifically phone specific. Test this stuff out. Use these tools. It works really, really well. We're going to start blogging about this more and more often. I'd love to hear results of your own tests. One last thing. I showed you all those sites, and all of those customers, in the spirit of supporting SpreeConf, have created promotional codes with our wonderful promotional system to give you various discounts. These are sort of time limited. I'll leave this up while I take any questions you guys might have. But yeah, those are all great sites, great product. Check it out, get a good deal. Thank you.
Okay, we can take some questions. Can we turn the
fall.
lights up? Hello? There we go. There's one down here, Peter.
Hi. In your tip, over here, sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry.
In your tip where you said don't link out,
Yeah.
what were some of the examples that you were linking out to?
I mean, for example, we'd have a blog link or product reviews, anything like that. I mean, if the customer's trying to make a decision whether to buy or whether to add it to their cart, wherever possible, just bring that content into the product page versus linking them out to another site. Does that work? Mr. Quinn? Oh.
Thanks for the great talk. You talked about A/B testing. What's
Yeah.
your preferred solution for that?
Optimizely is what we're using more often than not. And Optimizely is cool. Great UI, easy to get started. I mean, on this note, so there's a couple of things like Optimizely uses JavaScript to change certain elements of the page to make things easy to test. So you can't do everything you want to do with Optimizely. Like if you actually need to dramatically change the structure of the page, we would do some sort of before and after benchmarking. But we always, like anything, when we're doing feature development, we want to do the simplest possible thing first. So changing text on buttons, call to action, that's like Optimizely's amazing for that. And it's great to share with clients. Yeah, total win.
So I have a two-factor question.
Oh boy.
What's your favorite like responsive framework, like Bootstrap versus Zerb or those? And then second, why not native?
Why not native? Okay, so first question. What is our preferred responsive framework? That's a great question. Like we've played around with Skeleton. We've used our own sort of flavor of Blueprint and Compass, Bootstrap. We tend to prefer Bootstrap over Zerb just because we're familiar with it. Yeah. And then why not native? Meaning why a responsive site versus a native site? So we particularly focus on responsive because it's great for an MVP. It lets us get something out the door quickly, start testing it. For the most part, like for the sites that I showed you here, we haven't needed a native application. We built a prototype of like a Spree SDK, let's say, for iOS that wraps the Spree API. And we didn't really get an awful lot of bang for our buck that we can't get from a properly optimized responsive site.
Yeah, over here. Hello.
I'm looking.
Right in the front.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. All these numbers are like crazy awesome. For any of these clients, are you willing to share what % of sales are on mobile these days? Like gross % or overall?
Yeah, I mean, what percentage of sales for mobile? It's hard for me to say. I don't have those numbers in front of me. Yeah, I'd be happy to say. I wouldn't say which client.
Yeah.
But it's easily between 20 and 30% as a general rule, and it keeps going up every month. It's amazing. And the more we make the checkout experience easier, the more these numbers are going up. Like a great example is Blue Bottle this week. This is like I love this example. I love this brand. But they got a ton of press. They launched a coffee product in conjunction with the ex-lead singer of LCD Sound System, and this was getting press everywhere. And tons of people were reading the press release on Twitter, and they were going directly from Twitter to the page and then to the product page. So our product page is so optimized now for mobile, and the checkout flow works so well. Like we saw a massive amount of sales, and I think half the sales that day were mobile sales. And it makes perfect sense because people were figuring out about this product because of these news releases. And if you think about how we consume news, it's on Twitter, and you're on Twitter most of the time on a mobile device, or I am anyhow.
Hi.
Yep,
Do you-
found that one.
Obviously, you said good practices in testing behind everything. Do you find that depending on the industry, the kind of market it is, that any of the logic changes with some of these steps, like time to purchase, average order value, something where potentially you need a desktop environment to potentially purchase?
Right, yeah, so, I mean, we had 8 weeks. So we started putting together this talk and these tests as soon as we knew what talk we were delivering. So we wanted to limit our focus to just mobile so that we could actually get some significant results. I mean, the real answer to your question is, yeah, I mean, I think desktop is absolutely important. We'd want to run the same sort of tests. I think you can take a lot of these same studies and apply them there. Just because you have more real estate doesn't mean you should confuse the user. So does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, hi.
Wow, I'm getting good at this.
We got it. You mentioned just streamlining the checkout process, and I was just wondering if you could give some examples what part of the UX specifically you're referring to. Is that a design issue? Is that a navigation issue?
Yeah, so it's twofold. The first thing that we do is we just get rid of everything. So there's no navigation options. You go into the checkout. The only thing you can do is exit the checkout, so like go back to the homepage or go through it. That's the first thing. The second thing is the way that Spree works out of the box with the multiple step checkout isn't awesome for mobile. So if we're able to collapse some of those steps into more of a single page, and we do things like giving users an address book, allowing them to reuse credit cards so that ultimately they can check out with 1 or 2 clicks without filling in information in forms, that's better. So that's more of a design problem.
Hey, I've got a question all the way in the back.
Yes.
So we recently implemented a responsive design for our site, and it's done tremendously well.
Cool.
There's one thing that we're noticing, and I was wondering if you're noticing the same thing, is that our transactions are going up, our revenue is going up, but the average order value size gone down or is lower than desktop.
Hmm.
Do you notice the same association?
So for us, specifically to tablet, the average, and why tablet users are so interesting to us, is that their average order value is higher. But I'm not sure, I don't have the stats for phone, but for us, we've noticed that people tend to spend more on their tablets.
Right. Something we're definitely working on, but I just wondered if you had the same.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So I was wondering if you had any experience or recommendations with like a highly configurable product where there might be a lot of options.
Native.
Native, you think,
Yeah.
or something like that? Okay.
No, I mean, I don't have experience with something like that,
Uh-huh.
but I would imagine in a scenario like that, it's going to be tough to really nail the UI there doing it. I mean, I don't think responsive makes sense there. So either native or a mobile-specific site, I think, is going to provide a better environment for someone. Yeah. But like anything, make it incrementally better. You know, try to solve the problem in the easiest possible way. Make small changes. Test those changes. If it ends up working out better, then that's fantastic.
How you doing? Good, I'm on. I'm a non-tech CEO. I feel like I have to introduce myself to people around here just in case the questions I ask may seem stupid. But when you rip and strip so much stuff out, how does that affect the SEO?
How does that affect the SEO? That's a great question.
Cool.
I don't. It depends on how you're doing it. It depends on how you're doing it. So if you're not concerned about performance, a lot of that information is still there. It's just hidden. So it might still be available to search engines. Ultimately, though, we're making the product page more focused. We should be making it easier for search engines to figure out what this product page is all about. So I don't know if it has a negative impact on SEO. Like, our concern here is mainly we have people on the site. We want to increase conversion, but that's something we'd have to look at. I'm not sure.
In our experience, what we've had is on mobile devices, it's generally younger users or like a broader base, and then tablets is generally older users. And what we sort of inferred from that was that our demographic on a tablet was somebody who was, like a soccer mom buying, gifts for their kids, and then the kids on the phone were the ones making impulse purchases. We would find that kids on the phone were buying, they would make 2 or 3 orders, and then somebody on a tablet would buy 3 items. So maybe to answer that question would be the demographics of who's using the mediums. And I was just wondering if you have anything similar, like in terms of age groups, to back anything like that up.
So I don't have data here. I have thought about this, though, and I think my intuition is that the buying experience on a phone still sucks, even with a reasonable responsive pass. I think the younger demographic is more tolerant and maybe has better dexterity to be able to do it. But I believe, when I look at my parents and I see how often they're using their phones, if the checkout experience was simple, like, I imagine my mother would be buying up a storm. So it'd be something that'd be interesting to study if we really came up with like the perfect checkout experience on a phone. And we're getting there.
Hi, Bryan.
Hey, David.
Hey. I was wondering how you balance the results of your testing versus sort of intuition, and how you determine how you're going to do new tests, etc.
Yeah. So there's a pretty good debate going on right now about design. Like, you shouldn't design just with data, and that designers need to rely on their intuition. So our intuition drove these tests. Like, we had numerous theories that we wanted to try and validate here. And we still have like a long shopping list of those. So as designers, we're still using our intuition, but we're allowing ourselves to fail, and we're totally being open to that. Whereas without data here, like in the past, you'd just be like, well, you're wrong. This looks better. This obviously is going to work better. But I think if you're open-minded about it and you allow yourself to be surprised, yeah, it works out well. But intuition is huge. Intuition is huge. Also, user testing, like finding users on, inviting them. Like we found users on Craigslist as an example, and you write a script for them, and they come in and they go through a prototype, and you film them, and you look at the heat maps, and they use your apps in a way that you could never think of, and it forces you to sort of reconsider that intuition.
So
How
you
about one more?
Yes.
so you covered it a little bit there, but I was wondering, were there things that you tried that you expected would be really, really good that actually turned out to be really, really bad that you can share?
Good question. Andre, do you know? Is there something that we tested that turned out to be a huge failure that we thought was going to be really successful? If something comes up, I'll send you a note. Cool.
All right, Bryan.
All right, thanks, guys.